Merry Christmas, everyone. Today is Tuesday, January the 18th, 2022. I shall be reading to y'all Gospel of John, chapter 18, verses 1 through 40. And Revelation to St. John, chapter 18, verses 1 through 24. And make sure to check out my other videos as well. And please continue praying that the COVID stuff will be done and dusted. It is still the lockdown is still scheduled to go until January 26th. So please pray for this to be done with. Pray for the people who have lost their jobs temporarily as well because of the lockdown. Okay, so, and yesterday we concluded the 4 favorite chapters of mine of the Gospel of John. And now let us begin. Gospel of John, chapter 18. Jesus arrested. When he had said this, Jesus went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to where there was a garden, into which he and his disciples entered. Judas, his betrayer, also knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas got a band of soldiers and guards from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and went there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Jesus, knowing everything that was going to happen to him, went out and said to them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered him, "Jesus, the Nazarene." He said to them, "I am." Judas, his betrayer, was also with them. When he said to them, "I am," they turned away and fell to the ground. So he again asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They said, "Jesus, the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am. So if you are looking for me, let these men go." This was to fulfill what he had said, "I have not lost any of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its scabbard. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father gave me?" So the band of soldiers, the tribune, and the Jewish guards seized Jesus, bound him, and brought him to Annas first. He was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had counseled the Jews that it was better that one man should die rather than the people. Peter's first denial. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Now the other disciple was known to the high priest, and he entered the courtyard of the high priest with Jesus. But Peter stood at the gate outside. So the other disciple, the acquaintance of the high priest, went out and spoke to the gatekeeper and brought Peter in. Then the maid, who was the gatekeeper, said to Peter, "You are not one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now, the slaves and the guards were standing around a charcoal fire that they had made because it was cold, and they were warming themselves. Peter was also standing there keeping warm. The inquiry before Annas. The high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his doctrine. Jesus answered him, "I have spoken publicly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogue or in the temple area where all the Jews gather, and in secret I have said nothing. Why ask me? Ask those who heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the temple guards standing there struck Jesus and said, "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Peter denies Jesus again. Now Simon Peter was standing there keeping warm, and they said to him, "You are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the one whose ear Peter had cut off, said, "Did I see you in the garden with him?" Again Peter denied it, and immediately the cock crowed. The trial before Pilate. Then they brought Jesus from Caiaphas to the praetorium. It was morning, and they themselves did not enter the praetorium, in order not to be defiled, so that they could eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and said, "What charge do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If he were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." At this, Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews answered him, "We do not have the right to execute anyone," in order that the word of Jesus might be fulfilled that he said, indicating the kind of death he would die. So Pilate went back into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this on your own, or have others told you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here." So Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king." Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" When he had said this, he again went out to the Jews and said to them, "I find no guilt in him, but you have a custom that I release one prisoner to you at Passover. Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" They cried out again, "Not this one, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a revolutionary. And that was Gospel of John, chapter 19, verses 1 through 40. Now on to Revelation, St. John, chapter 18, verses 1 through 24. Revelation, St. John, chapter 18. The fall of Babylon. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth became illumined by his splendor. He cried out in a mighty voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a haunt for demons. She is a cage for every unclean spirit, a cage for every unclean bird, a cage for every unclean and disgusting beast. For all the nations have drunk the wine of her licentious passion, The kings of the earth had intercourse with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her drive for luxury. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Depart from her, my people, so as not to take part in her sins and receive a share in her plagues. For her sins are piled up to the sky, and God remembers her crimes. Pay her back as she paid others. Pay her back double for her deeds. Into her cup pour double what she poured. To the measure of her boasting and wantonness, repay her in torment and grief. For she said to herself, I sit enthroned as queen. I am no widow, and I will never know grief. Therefore, her plagues will come in one day, pestilence, grief, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. The kings of the earth who had intercourse with her in their wantonness will weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her pyre. They will keep their distance for fear and of her torment inflicted on her. And they will say, Alas, alas, great city, Babylon, mighty city, in 1 hour her judgment has come. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn for her, because there will be no more markets for their cargo of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple silk and scarlet cloth, fragrant wood of every kind, all articles of ivory, and all articles of the most expensive wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, and frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and slaves, that is, human beings. The fruit you craved has left you. All your luxury and splendor are gone. Never again will one find them. The merchants who deal in these goods, who grew rich from her, will keep their distance for fear of the torment inflicted on her. Weeping and mourning, they cry out, Alas, alas, great city, wearing fine linen, purple and scarlet, adorned in gold, precious stones and pearls. In 1 hour, this great wealth has been ruined. Every captain of a ship, every traveler at sea, sailors and seafaring merchants stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her pyre. What city could compare with the great city? They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and mourning, Alas, alas, great city, in which all who had ships at sea grew rich from her wealth. In 1 hour she has been ruined. Rejoice over her, heaven, you holy ones, apostles and prophets, for God hath judged your case against her. A mighty angel picked up a stone like a huge millstone and threw it into the sea and said, With such force will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down and will never be found again. No melodies of harpists and musicians, flautists and trumpeters will ever be heard in you again. No craftsman in any trade will ever be found in you again. No sound of the millstone will ever be heard in you again. No light from a lamp will ever be seen in you again. No voices of bride and groom will ever be heard in you again. Because merchants were the great ones of the world, all nations were led astray by her magic potion. In her was found the blood of prophets and holy ones, and all who had been slain on the earth. And that was Revelation, St. John, chapter 18, verses 1 through 24. Make sure to check out my other videos and all that jazz. And I do have jazz on my music too. And I hope you're having a lovely Christmas season. And thank you for watching, and please continue praying. God love ya.